Welcome to the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council with hosts Grace Evans and Moses Brattrud. Stay informed on the top stories on life, family, and religious freedom. Get the facts, stand for truth. Hello and welcome back to the Family Beacon podcast. My name is Grace Evans. I'm here with Moses Brattrud. It has been a hot minute since we were both on the podcast together, but wow, I'm so excited. Guys, here's what we'll be talking about today. We're going to be discussing how our allies at Alliance Defending Freedom successfully sued the FDA over wrongly approving abortion pills nationwide. We are super excited about this victory, so Moses will break down the legal aspects and I will break down why the abortion pill is so detrimental to both women and children. We will also discuss a biological male who was accepted into the Royal Academy of Dance and who is not skilled at ballet, you guys. Surprise, surprise.
Well, I mean, you should probably clarify because there are good male dancers.
That's true, actually. He was accepted to be a female ballerina role. So yes, thank you.
Right.
And then also we will be discussing how, thankfully, abortion rates have declined since the Dobbs ruling. So all that and more on the Family Beacon podcast today.
Grace, thank you. I think this abortion pill case is one of the biggest things that's happened since the Dobbs decision in terms of abortion, because nationwide, a large and increasing share of abortions are done through medication. And the thing about medication abortions is not only are they unsafe, just like any abortion for a woman, and of course they always leave the child dead if they work, quote unquote, as advertised, but also it allows you to abuse the system in other ways. So throughout the pandemic and possibly even before, the FDA has allowed women to just use a telehealth appointment to get an abortion. And that's been legal. I'm not sure if that's been legal everywhere, but it's certainly been legal in some states. And the amount of telehealth abortions has actually been increasing. And of course, you can't do that with a surgical abortion. So that's the background for why this case is so big. So in 2022, a group of pro-life medical professionals and Alliance Defending Freedom filed a lawsuit, as Grace said, alleging that the whole approval process for the abortion drug mifepristone was wrong. And a federal judge in the Northern District of Texas agreed with that. So this is how ADF's senior counsel, Denise Harles, this is what she said about this. Back in 2000, under pressure from the Clinton administration, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, recklessly, unlawfully approved this chemical abortion regimen by ignoring its own regulations. It actually used a special approval process that's supposed to be reserved only for life-saving drugs. A little bit of disgusting irony there. It did so by categorizing pregnancy as an illness, which of course it's not. It's just a natural process that most women experience. And by claiming that mifepristone, this abortion drug, provides a therapeutic benefit. From the very beginning, the approval was unlawful just on that front alone. In addition to that, the FDA never did the required safety testing. So there's a pretty clear grounds, I think, for this federal judge in Texas to rule that the FDA had approved that drug unlawfully. However, Grace, as you may have seen, there were two subsequent court rulings that have made this a much more complicated picture. Just, I think, the same day or the day after that ruling last week, another federal judge, I think in Washington State, stated that that ruling would not apply in the, I think, 17 states which were involved in this lawsuit in some way, specifically trying to keep the abortion pill legal, and that includes Minnesota. So unfortunately, the abortion pill remains available in Minnesota. Then just yesterday, that would be Wednesday, the 12th of April, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans ruled 2-1 Wednesday to keep mifepristone available, only to be dispensed up to 7 weeks of gestation, not 10 weeks, and not by mail. So that is, those basically what that means is those changes, being able to get it by mail after a telehealth appointment, and being able to have it up to 10 weeks of pregnancy, which it's a really risky medication, and Grace will talk more about that. But my belief is that it's more risky the later on in pregnancy you are, which is why you can only have it up to a certain gestational age. Of course, it's always very risky for the child. So we're looking at a federal court that has kind of, first of all, it's not exactly the victory we wanted. The federal court is saying, no, the FDA is wrong. You shouldn't be able to get these pills by mail, and you shouldn't be able to get them past 7 weeks gestation. But they're not saying, nope, this drug was approved unlawfully. This sets up a confrontation at the Supreme Court. At least that's what it seems. That's what it seems where it seems to be headed. What were we going to say?
Sorry. So in Minnesota, Moses, just to clarify for both myself and for our audience, can Minnesotan citizens get an abortion pill by mail legally here?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yep, and I believe that dates to the FDA's rules from the pandemic era, if not before, where they allowed abortion pills to be delivered through the mail, so you don't even need to go to the post office, and for a telehealth appointment rather than an in-person appointment to be used to get that medication and abortion. So, and it's really, we're in a place of extreme confusion as to the legality of the abortion pill nationally. I mean, we've just talked about 3 different court decisions saying 3 different things. So unfortunately, until and unless the Supreme Court hears this case and gives a definitive ruling, this is going to be in limbo. If we have some listeners from out of state, you may live in a state where it will now be more difficult to get the abortion pill. Well, in fact, it sounds like it will be more difficult to get the abortion pill everywhere in terms of if it's not going to be dispensed by mail and not as late in gestation of the pregnancy. So I talked about the telehealth thing, but I think it's worth stressing again how that opens us up to abuse.
Absolutely.
You can have someone sitting off camera with like a gun pointed at a woman who's requesting this abortion medication over a telehealth appointment. Maybe it's her abuser, right? And every aspect of abortion is just rotten to the core. But shouldn't we try to be making it less susceptible to abuse, less susceptible to sex traffickers and rapists using this to hurt women, to compound the suffering that women are experiencing, and of course, to take the lives of children in the womb. So I think this has really catalyzed for me the how insane this thing is. Like the Biden administration is all in on this. They're not letting the courts just make these decisions based on the Constitution. Vice President Harris, this is a quote from a news article. On Wednesday, Vice President Kamala Harris joined the Task Force on Reproductive Health Care Access for a meeting at the White House where they discussed new actions the Biden administration could take to push back against states that are imposing abortion restrictions. So I guess my question would be, who do you want deciding your abortion laws? Do you want it to be your own state legislature, your own state courts, or do you want it to be Vice President Harris and the White House's Reproductive Freedom Access Task Force? I just think that's ridiculous. I don't think anyone wants that. And so as Minnesotans, guys, the abortion pill ruling may not immediately affect us, but it definitely will if the Supreme Court were to take up this case. So this is something to watch. And something to watch also just on behalf of women nationally, because, Grace, tell us, I think that people misunderstand when they hear, people think medication, well, it has to be safe or it wouldn't have been approved, but that's not the case, is it?
Right, exactly. It's definitely not the case. I mean, there are so many risks of the pill. And of course, like Moses has stressed time and time again, we know that in every single successful abortion, an innocent child dies. So of course it's never safe for a child, but it's also very unsafe for women. So over the past few years, when I say few, I mean since 2000, when the abortion pill was created and became legal, there have been over 1,042 hospitalizations, excluding death, for women being caused by the abortion pill. Over 599 women have lost blood requiring transfusion. So that means a significant amount of blood, because if you're requiring your transfusion, you've lost a lot. Over 412 women have been infected because they took an abortion pill. there have been over 24 maternal deaths. So over 24 women have died. Now, I want you to note, though, on these statistics, on these numbers, which, by the way, I'm taking these from Live Action's website. Live Action is the leading pro-life organization in the United States and even in the world. But in 2016, the FDA stopped requiring that these effects be reported besides death, these adverse effects. They said, you don't actually have to report these things, so the hospitalizations, the blood loss, the infections, you don't have to report those anymore. So the actual statistics are definitely higher than this,
right,
because we don't actually have statistics on this since 2016.
2016 was 7 years ago, guys.
Right,
That's crazy.
exactly. Now they're supposed to record the deaths still, but even 24 deaths, even one death of a mother due to abortion is too many. And so at least 24 women have died due to the abortion pill. And even if they don't die, many women are severely harmed by this. And so not only have women been hurt, but nearly 4 million preborn children have been killed by this pill since the FDA first approved it. So really, there have been over 4,000 reports of adverse effects from women experiencing these hemorrhaging, this abdominal pain, severe life-threatening infections that we've mentioned. And so this drug is unsafe for women, but also, you guys, we've talked about this before on the podcast, but I just want to break it down one more time for you guys. This is known as the chemical abortion or the abortion pill. It's the same thing. And I just want to break down again what it does for you, because we need to put into perspective exactly what abortion does. We don't want this to hide in the shadows. We need to actually expose it with the light. This is what's actually happening in a chemical abortion. So it's called RU-486 is the drug that is used, and it's used to kill the child and expel that child from the womb. So it involves two drugs, Moses. It involves mifeprex and misoprostol, excuse me. And so what it does is the first one starves the child essentially, and the second one expels the child dead.
And it was, I believe, the first medication in that sequence, mifepristone and mifeprex, that was challenged under this ruling.
Got it. So this pill, of course, is unsafe. And so if you are watching this right now and you know someone who has undergone an abortion, if you're considering doing it, if you know anyone who is even considering it, you need to tell them about reverseabortionpill.com. That's reverseabortionpill.com, where women can go. And if they've just taken the first pill, there's actually a high possibility of her being able to stop the abortion. There are babies alive today that prove that the abortion pill reversal actually does work. Now, the abortion industry likes to tell us, no one ever, that isn't a thing. No babies can be saved after the first abortion pill has been taken. But it's actually not true, because a woman can take progesterone, which is in this life-saving pill, and that mifeprex abortion can actually usually be stopped. There's actually a 25%. It moves from a 25% survival rate to 68% survival rate after you get that progesterone. So really, that's a huge jump in survival rate for the baby. And so make sure you tell women that are abortion-minded. Reverseabortionpill.com can actually help save lives. It's truly incredible. And guys, I just want to encourage you to speak out about this. The pill is unsafe. And just to build off of what Moses was saying about the telehealth appointments, it's really unsafe because of the abuse aspect, but they're also unsafe because in a telehealth appointment, again, it's on Zoom, and so there's no ultrasound. There's no way for them to really judge exactly how far along a woman is besides the last date, except when she thinks she conceived, or if the last date of her period, that's what they will ask for. But it's very unsafe, because what if a woman is beyond 7 weeks, beyond 10 weeks? And after 10 weeks, it's pretty unsafe to have this, because it's way more likely for a woman to bleed out.
It's so unprofessional.
Exactly. It's so unprofessional, and they actually don't know beyond a shadow of doubt, okay, this is how far along she is in her pregnancy. So they're just herding women like cattle through these Zoom calls and be like, let's get to the next one, but they're not actually figuring out how far along she is. And so not only can she be being abused, like Moses said, but also, even if she's not being abused, she can be severely hurt. I mean, she can die from this if she takes this too late. And so just speak up about this, guys. I just encourage you to.
It just, going back to when progressives deny that babies survive when the mifeprex abortion pill, it's insane to me that they have to resort to a denial of reality. And I've mentioned the fact that I've met and shaken the hand of a woman who survived a surgical abortion, and like, those people exist. It doesn't happen all the time, but people can survive a surgical abortion, and many more people can survive a medication abortion because of this reversal process. And there are happy, smiling kids running around all over the place comparatively who have survived this, but our adversaries on this issue, they have to just straight up deny that reality. They have to straight up deny that anyone can ever survive an abortion, because then they really have to confront, if they admitted that, then they would really have to confront the fact that that is a child. It's not a clump of cells.
Life.
It's not part of the mother's body.
Well, no, Moses, it's just a life with potential.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, exactly.
That's the talking point.
Now, speaking of denial of reality, if you're ready to move on, you have a doozy of reality denial for us.
Absolutely. Let's talk about our next story, you guys. So a transgender ballerina was accepted into the Royal Academy of Dance. That was a breaking headline this week. Now, this didn't happen recently. This has just gone viral recently. And like Moses said, helpfully at the very beginning of this podcast episode, this is a ballerina that is a biological male that is claiming to be a woman ballerina and is doing all of the women's steps to ballet. Now, I did ballet for, I think, 13 years growing up.
No kidding.
Yeah, I did it for a very long time, so I did point and everything. And so this is pretty discouraging to me as a former ballerina, because I know how there are unique differences between men and women in the parts in ballet. So in ballet, men can jump a lot higher than women can because they have a lot more strength. They're doing the lifts. They're the ones lifting the women because they have more arm strength than women. And in general, I mean, the whole goal of ballet is to be graceful, but women have much more natural grace than men, just across the board. That's just the natural reality. And men have more strength than women naturally. And so it is very, it is shocking to me that so many people are applauding this. So it was several years ago that this biological male, whose name is now Sophia Rebecca, I don't know if that's the legal name or that's just the name that this person's going by, but he became the first transgender dancer to be accepted into the Royal Academy of Dance.
This happened years ago?
Yeah, this happened several years ago.
So,
but I'll explain why it's going viral.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. So he got accepted, and this is an internationally renowned ballet school, you guys. It's London-based. This is not this low-key thing. This is highly professional. And he was already in his mid-30s when he was accepted. And ballerinas usually retire by age 30. Women do, women ballerinas, because
I guess you retired earlier than 30.
It takes a toll on a woman's body to be dancing competitively after you're 30, and even before that. But yeah, so professional ballerinas, I wasn't professional, but professional ballerinas, if you're dancing so much, they're usually going through like 2 pairs of pointe shoes a day. It's crazy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So the reason this is going viral now is because he recently filmed a video of him doing a combo. Yes, so we're going to go ahead and roll that on the screen right now.
Oh my goodness. I here's the thing. We don't want to make it fun of anybody. If you're like a senior and you find a joy in jazzercise or something and enjoy in dancing, when I used to dance as well, like ballroom dancing, and there would be people who weren't very good and who were men and women, older, younger. And I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, okay? I really don't want to do that. But it is so sad when someone pretends to be something that they're not. And then, of course, they are really exposing themselves to the ridicule of the entire internet.
Yep.
And that, I'm sorry for this dude. I'm so sorry that he thinks that this is acceptable for him to do, that he's been told by others, that he's been gaslit into thinking that this is okay for him. And I'm sorry for all the ballerinas who now have to deal with this.
That's a spot that a biological woman could have had, too,
right.
at the Royal Academy.
Absolutely. Presumably there are girls and women who would have loved to have that chance.
Yes, and so as you guys could see in that video, thanks for your take, Moses, in that video, you could see that there was the ballerina on one side who is a biological woman, is very graceful. If you just notice how she lands on her feet after the small jumps that she's doing, you can tell it's just so much grace. That is naturally how girls that do ballet, that's what they're trained to do. Now, unfortunately, men just can't do that. As you can see, Rebecca, he can't do that. I wish I knew his actual name. But Rebecca, he can't do that because he's a biological male. He just can't have that same level of grace that a woman can have. And so he's trying to do these moves that girls naturally are going to be so much better at. And it really is just sad for him, like Moses said. And so this one user posted the video side by side to highlight truly the parody that he's making out of womanhood in this dancing. So I just want to share a little bit more about the background of this and the response of people. So this video that Rebecca shared, and again, this was to promote his dancing and made him go viral, is from one of the routines from the exam. So this is what you have to do to pass to get into the school. And so the point that I'm trying to make is that he should never have passed the exam because he can't do it well enough. Unfortunately, he just can't because he's a man. And so Rebecca claimed on social media, of course he's getting a lot of traction, he claimed that he was always enthralled by dancers and, quote, mesmerized by the costumes, but inner turmoil and latent, quote, transphobia initially prevented him from pursuing his dream of becoming a dancer. So that's why he became a dancer at 30, he would say. He said, I would be a much better dancer today had I been able to continue back then. Now maybe that's true, maybe he would have been a little better, but guess what? He would not have looked like a biological woman doing those steps.
Snap.
No amount of training can let you do that. So let's see, other things, he's done different performances where he will be the only ballerina who's wearing a bust-enhancing costume. He towers over the other ballerinas as a biological male, and he, unfortunately, since he's a man, again, he is more stiff and flat-footed than the women. That's just how God made our bodies. And so he quoted, he's been criticized, of course, for his lack of talent after this has gone viral. And in response, he said, I'm undeterred. I get confronted by stereotypes all the time. Now, my question is it stereotypes or is it just reality? It's just reality. It's not stereotypes. It's just biological reality.
Absolutely.
And also, it's just the standard of being a ballerina. I mean, there are standards here, folks. It's not us stereotyping. It's just saying, hey, there's a standard that you need to hit if you want to be a female ballerina. And sorry, you just don't cut it as a biological male. Biology doesn't lie.
Presumably, female ballerinas who try to take on the male role in that type of dance would, I'm not familiar with this as much, but they would have probably a lot of trouble with the lifts and stuff that you mentioned. In fact, people might come crashing down if they did that. And so that, again, we're not just picking on this one dude. If women were trying to, and of course women are, at even higher rates identifying as transgender, and so they're trying to take on these male roles that just don't fit because we're made in a certain way. It isn't, as Grace said, it's not about stereotypes. It is about reality. So true. I'm so glad you pointed that out, Moses, because yes, what we're trying to do is we're just speaking the biological facts, and this is one example of the biological truth and the way God made the world being twisted. And so we will, of course, if there's a woman who's trying to do manly things, then we're going to call that out too. We're not okay with that. Another quote from Rebecca, he said, people have this image in their head, if you say ballet, they have a belief that there's such thing as a ballet body or that it's delicate and feminine. It can be, but it also can be powerful and strong. Now, the problem with this is, okay, women ballerinas are very strong, very powerful. Kidding. They are packed. Like their muscles are toned. Guys, it's crazy. I still have toned muscles from doing ballet 5 years ago. I mean, it's insane. Ballerinas are absolutely powerful and strong, but guess what? They're always delicate and feminine. They're delicate and feminine. Why? Because you can only be feminine if you're a woman. There it is.
And so I'm going to end with this quote and then my thoughts based on this quote. He shared, Rebecca said, I'd rather my dancing spoke more for me than my identity as a trans woman. And now that's just really sad to me because he wouldn't be popular going viral if he wasn't identifying as biological male. I mean, no one would think, oh, wow, like look at this video, how impressive. The only reason that he's going viral is because he's saying he's a man and he's doing these dance steps and is acting as if he were a woman. And so, unfortunately, he has this, I'll put this up on the screen too, you guys, I'll have our producer do it. He was promoted in an issue of a dance magazine in 2016.
Oh, no.
And it says, I am a dancer on the front. And it's this whole, it buys into that thing that he's saying is he wants to be known as a dancer. And he doesn't want people to be focused on the trans aspect. But I just want to say that if you have to broadcast everywhere that I'm a dancer, I'm a good dancer, I'm a dancer, then you're probably not a dancer or you're probably not a good dancer. Likewise, if you have to say, I'm a woman, I'm a woman, I'm a woman, you're probably not a woman because people just know if you're a woman. Like I look at Moses, I'm not like, Moses, prove to me that you're a man.
Yeah, no,
I don't think
Grace has ever said to me, I'm a woman. or
Right.
I don't just go up to people and say,
Are
hi,
you a woman?
I'm Moses, I'm a man. I don't need to say that. It's evident from my beard, my tone of voice, my height. Like I have thicker wrists and broader shoulders than most women, and that's just the deal, and it just, these things are innate. They're created in us. Now, one really sad aspect, Grace, is when children identify as transgender, and if they are given hormonal treatment, then some of the things that make men and women that make them different, that make them appear different, not at the genetic level, but things like muscle mass and bone density, those can change. There's a ton of adverse health effects associated with, but if you want to look like a man or look like a woman, if you start early enough, sometimes it works on one level. And yet that's so much more tragic because first of all, I don't really want to talk about like Jazz Jennings and people people who have been involved in this from such a young age. And you can hear these people talk about how much they regret it and how they...
Chloe Cole, excellent example.
Right. Yeah. Listen to people who have detransitioned, but also listen to people who are still so proud of this identity that they have created for themselves, and yet who are more honest about the toll that it's taken on them. I was just talking to a detransitioner about this last week. I hope to be able to share more about that next week. Sorry,
awesome.
Go ahead, Grace.
Yeah, so we'll wrap up on this story and move to our next one, since we are pretty far into our podcast at this point. But I do think that, we need to have compassion for this man, this biological man who is seeking this approval for his dancing and unfortunately isn't getting very much of it. I mean, both fortunately and unfortunately. I wouldn't want people to be approving his dancing because it's just, unfortunately, it's just not good. But at the same time, it's really sad for him because that's what he wants and he's not getting that from many people. And so likewise, though, it is actually pretty embarrassing for the Royal Academy of Dance for passing Rebecca in that exam, for whatever instructor saw him do that combo and thought, wow, that person deserves a spot in our Royal Academy as being recognized as a female. It seems like their standards are just very low.
What they're saying is talented dancers look elsewhere.
Right, exactly. And so, so that's my last thought on that. Guys, don't be afraid to call men men and women women, and don't be afraid to use biological pronouns, please. And don't put your pronouns in your social media bio. I'll talk about that some other time, but don't do that, guys.
Absolutely.
So strange. Yeah. Or your LinkedIn bio. I have so many friends who have their pronouns on LinkedIn. It makes me so sad because I just... You're buying into the mindset that you can change your pronouns and you can't. Yeah. So, Moses, tell us quickly about how abortion rates are declining after
Absolutely.
Dobbs.
I would be happy to, Grace. And you know what? The sun is shining in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
And abortion is on the decline. So after the Dobbs v. Jackson decision came down last year, people have been wondering, is this going to cause an increase in abortion rates? Is it going to cause a decrease in abortion rates? So there's been a study done, and I should stress that this is a report by a group called the Society for Family Planning, and I hate that phrase, family planning. And this is a pro-abortion group. It's on their website. It's one of their top priorities is increasing the number of abortions. So they're not happy about this, guys. But since the Dobbs decision, compared to the average monthly number of abortions observed in the pre-Dobbs period, there were 32,260 cumulative fewer abortions from July to December of last year. So if you annualize that, we're talking maybe 60,000 fewer abortions in a year, which is 60,000 more kids.
Souls,
folks.
souls.
Human souls, right. And it's just, now, and it's hard to stress how amazing that is. It's that 60,000 kids in a kindergarten, in an elementary school, in high school, in college, entering the job market, falling in love, getting married, having more kids, having an entire life, everything that makes humanity unique and special, created in the unique image of God. Those kids now have a chance at that. And they have a chance at that because the Supreme Court ruled the way it did in the Dobbs v. Jackson decision. And that is a wonderful thing. We need to thank God for that. You know, we've had headwinds this year in Minnesota, but we, as a nation, we are on the right track. We are moving towards a nation where abortion is not an acceptable way of dealing with a quote unquote problem, the problem so-called of an unwanted pregnancy. And there's so much more I could say to that. I think it's also good to note that while the overall number of abortions decreased, abortions provided by telehealth providers, as we've been talking about throughout this episode, increased by almost 137%, okay? So they more than doubled from the first half of the year to the second half of the year. And what that suggests is that people are either traveling to other states, and we do have, unfortunately, 1,800 more abortions in Minnesota, and so like 1,200 more in Kansas and other states that have not restricted abortion and are surrounded by states that have done so. So people are possibly getting telehealth appointments with out-of-state doctors, or even traveling to out-of-states, nearby states for so-called abortion care, which is actually, of course, ending the life of their child. So, but the takeaway here is abortion decreased in red states more than it increased in blue states. So what we're talking about, that suggests that restricting abortion is actually successful in reducing the abortion rate. You know, what I haven't heard a ton of is the whole back alley thing. Like if you make abortion illegal, women will just go do that.
Telehealth abortion appointments are back alley abortions.
Exactly. Thank you. That's exactly right. Yes. But also, this is proof that women who are not able to get an abortion will choose to keep their child.
Amen.
And you know, I do hope that our friends in red states, and I know some red states are really putting their money where their mouth is in terms of providing more help for women. And I hope the nonprofits and churches are stepping up so that women who might have considered abortion, and now that's not a legal option for them, they're keeping that baby. I hope that they get the love and care and support that they need. And I hope that's true in Minnesota as well. We work with organizations who do make that true in Minnesota.
I'm going to a pro-life gala tomorrow for Robbinsdale Women's Center.
Absolutely.
Love it.
We love to shout out to our friends at Pregnancy Resource Centers who are the heart of the pro-life movement. So, you know, when abortion is restricted, guys, women think twice about it. They choose life. Amen. And I would like to remind you guys that that is a good thing. And our opponents believe it's a bad thing. So you guys get to decide. This is a democracy. You guys get to decide, what do you want? When you subsidize something, you get more of it. When you restrict something, you get less of it. Do you want more abortion, or do you want fewer? We are on the side of life. We are on the side of helping the most vulnerable, and our opponents continue to trip over themselves in their as they seek to harm life in the womb. So I saw this tweet. This is just one example of this. This is from some national pro-abortion group.
I'm looking at it right now.
Abortion bans have already caused immeasurable harm.
Life-saving?
Yeah, exactly.
What? Harm?
Yeah. Bans cause extreme stress, push patients and their children into poverty, and make it more likely for patients to stay with violent partners. First of all,
that is so untrue.
I question that last statistic. I really question it. Because we know that women are more likely to be pressured into getting an abortion by a violent or abusive partner. But I also think pushing their children into poverty, that's not good. We don't want that. But is this the same child that you wanted this woman to abort? Like, it's just so shocking to me.
Dystopian.
That you would claim that it's better to be dead than to be poor. I mean, that's essentially what they're saying there.
Or stressed.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just think that's shocking, Grace, that we need to stress how good it is that abortion is declining, because people will be going on. I'm sure they're on the news networks now talking about how tragic it is that women are having, quote, their access to abortion care restricted, when what that really means is that there are joyfully more sweet little babies being born into the world as American citizens.
And women are feeling so supported and loved that they can choose life. Amazing. Praise God.
Absolutely. Exactly. You know, like, is it really such a bad thing that more children are being born into the richest nation in the history of the planet?
It's so true.
Okay.
Thank you, Moses.
Yeah. So, Grace, last question as we come in for a landing. What have you been reading?
Oh, what have I been reading, guys? I have been reading some good fiction books. So I have never read the Ashtown Burial series by Andy Wilson. Have you read them?
I only read the first one.
Okay, so I just read Dragon's Tooth for the first time. I tried reading it when I was a kid. I couldn't get through it. And I finally got through it. I think I didn't like it as a kid because it's not the same kind of fantasy as Narnia, and that was kind of my pillar, my standard for good fiction. It's not a beautiful world that they live in. I mean, it's the world of the United States they live in. It's a crumbly old motel. That's the setting. It's a flooded old basement. That's the setting. And so I didn't like it as a kid, but I really like it now. And now I'm reading Drowned Vault, which is the next one. How about you?
Okay, yeah. Well, I've told you before, I've been reading the Kristen Lavransdatter series, and I just last night finished the 3rd volume, which is called The Cross, and it broke me. It's incredibly sad and beautiful, and I can see why it won the Nobel Prize for Literature. So that was really good. And then I'm on a much lower level. I'm working on a thriller called Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and it's a very popular book right now, and it's kind of like, this idea is basically this guy is stolen and taken into another universe within the multiverse, and he's just like trying to fight his way back across the universe to get back to his wife and child. And it's just like, as a father and a husband, I'm really connecting with it, and I'm so invested in having this guy succeed and get back to his family. And there's all these people who are like twins, because it's like a multiverse scenario. There's all these people who are him, and they want his wife and son too. And in effect, they are him. But they're coming into his universe to try to steal her. And it's like,
I need to read this.
It's very inventive, but like, imagine someone coming into your life and they look and act exactly like you, and they're trying to steal your significant other.
That's crazy.
Pretty scary.
That's crazy.
Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I'm really enjoying it. I'm almost done. So I'll probably finish that on the way home, and then we can talk more about that next week.
Let's do it.
Guys, this has been the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council with Grace Evans and Moses Bratchford. Today we talked about the fight over the abortion pill. Will it remain legal or not? We talked about I'm sorry. We talked about a male dancer who thinks he's a woman and isn't very good at being a female dancer. I'm sorry. And then finally, we talked about how abortion rates are going down in the wake of the Dobbs v. Jackson decision. So we're getting you the facts so that you can stand for truth. Join us next time. Thanks so much for watching or listening.
Thanks for listening to or watching this episode of the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you're up to date on life, family, and religious freedom. You can follow us on Instagram at MN Family Council and subscribe to us on YouTube to watch our content. Get the facts, stand for truth.